You see, the thing that men often misunderstand, especially men who are trying to do everything right, is that female desire doesn't operate the way they think it should. It's not as linear or as transactional as many assume. A woman can absolutely be drawn to you, fascinated by you, even deeply attracted to you, and still never make a move. She might never text you first, never call you back, never slide into your messages, even if she's thinking about you more often than you can imagine. Why is that? Well, part of it is the structure of society. For generations, women have not been the initiators in romantic dynamics. This isn't about oppression or tradition for its own sake, it's about deeply rooted psychological frameworks. There's an emotional language that underlies female behavior that is different from male behavior, and it's not arbitrary. It's evolved over thousands of years of careful biological and cultural tuning. So when a man sits around wondering why women aren't messaging him despite knowing, or at least suspecting, that they find him attractive, the answer isn't necessarily about something being wrong with him. It's often about misunderstanding how attraction plays out in action, not just in feeling. You have to understand this. Attraction is not initiative. A woman can crave a man and yet never act on it. Why? Because desire, for her, is often interwoven with fear. Fear of rejection, fear of embarrassment, fear of being seen as too forward or desperate. And fear isn't irrational here, it's calibrated by years, even decades, of experience. The social penalty for a woman who's too forward can be significant, especially when she doesn't know where she stands. So what does she do instead? She waits, she hints, she hopes. And if you don't catch that, if you're not tuned into the subtleties of that language, you'll assume there's nothing there. You'll walk away from a woman who is silently screaming for your attention. There's also the matter of risk. A woman often has to feel safe before she opens herself up to anything. This doesn't just mean physical safety. It means emotional safety too. It means believing that if she does reach out, she won't be ignored or mocked or labeled. And so, many women don't take that chance unless they're absolutely certain. And let's be honest, how often do you make them feel certain? Now, this doesn't mean you're off the hook. Just because women don't initiate as often doesn't mean you get to sit there passively, wondering what went wrong. If you want to be the kind of man women feel compelled to respond to, the kind they feel safe being vulnerable around, you have to learn how to carry that responsibility. You need to be attentive without being needy, grounded without being aloof, confident without being arrogant. You need to understand that the cues women give are often subtle. Eye contact that lingers a second too long, a smile that's more open than necessary, a comment that seems incidental but carries a little weight if you're paying attention. If you don't train yourself to see these things, to interpret the space between the words, then yes, women will crave you, but they'll never contact you. Not because you're unworthy, but because they don't feel invited. So stop asking why women don't reach out to you first. Instead, ask yourself, have I made it clear they're welcome to? Now let's say you're the kind of man who's put in the work. You've sharpened your mind, disciplined your body, you're ambitious, maybe even successful in some capacity. You carry yourself well, you speak clearly, you know what you want. In theory, you're doing everything that would make you attractive, and yet, still nothing. The women you're interested in don't approach you. They seem to glance at you, sure, but they keep their distance. They don't follow up. They don't initiate. You feel like a ghost, visible, desired, but untouchable. There's something going on here that has nothing to do with your looks, your status, or even your communication skills. It has to do with what you're radiating beneath all of that, because whether you realize it or not, attractiveness and approachability are not the same thing. You can be deeply attractive and simultaneously completely unapproachable. And often, the more refined and competent a man becomes, the more likely he is to intimidate people without intending to. You walk into a room, you hold yourself with calm confidence, and you don't smile unless you mean it. You don't need anything from anyone. You're self-sufficient, and people admire that, but at the same time they hesitate. They assume you're cold, or worse, they assume you're judging them. And women, especially women who are used to being the ones who are pursued, will take that energy and interpret it as a barrier, even if it isn't meant to be. What you might think is quiet confidence could easily come across as disinterest. What you believe is stoicism may register as hostility or emotional distance. There's a razor-thin difference between strength and indifference in the social realm, and if you're not aware of how you're coming across, you'll push people away while telling yourself they just didn't see your value. And let's be fair, it's not all on you. There's a cultural backdrop that makes this worse. We've fed young women for years this idea that men who are emotionally reserved are dangerous, that if he's not openly warm, if he's not constantly validating her, then he must be toxic or emotionally unavailable or secretly cruel. And so, if you're a composed, rational man who doesn't chase attention, that image can play against you. Not because you are that way, but because they don't know, they can't tell, and they're not going to risk finding out. It's tragic in a way, because you might be exactly the kind of man they're longing for, stable, wise, loyal. But your exterior doesn't invite curiosity. It shuts it down, not because you're being rude or arrogant, but because you're guarded, and maybe you had to be. Maybe life taught you that if you let your guard down, people take advantage of you. But if you want connection, and if you're wondering why it's missing, then at some point you have to reckon with the fact that protection and isolation often look the same from the outside. So what do you do about it? You become intentional. You become aware that the way you carry yourself is being interpreted, whether you like it or not. You don't need to fake warmth, but you do need to learn how to signal presence. A simple nod, a softening of the eyes, an openness in your body language, these small gestures, they cost you nothing, but they communicate to others, especially to women, that you're not just a fortress. You're a man and you're here and you can be approached, because if all they see is a wall, they'll never knock. Most men have no idea how invisible they're making themselves. They believe that just being in the room is enough, that if a woman finds them attractive, she'll make a move, or at the very least, somehow signal her interest in a way that's obvious and easy to read. But here's the truth that stings a bit. She probably already has. The problem is, you didn't notice, or worse, you noticed and dismissed it because it didn't match your expectations of what interest is supposed to look like. There's a subtle language at play here, a social, emotional language, and if you don't understand it, you'll miss every opportunity that floats right past you, because women aren't just going to come up and say it. They're not going to spell it out. They're not going to risk full exposure unless they feel something from you first. Not just attraction, but openness, a kind of social invitation, and it doesn't come from your words. It comes from your presence. Now, you might think you're being cool. You think you're composed, mysterious, maybe even powerful in your silence. But what you're actually doing is giving off the exact opposite of what invites contact. You've built a kind of invisible fence around yourself. No signs, no signals, no subtle cues to say, hey, it's safe to come over here. And women, they're extraordinarily sensitive to those cues. They've had to be. From a young age, they learn to scan a room for emotional safety, not just physical, but psychological. If you aren't showing up as a man who's even slightly open to interaction, then you've already said no without saying a word. And look, this isn't about turning yourself into some cartoonishly extroverted version of a man. It's not about becoming performative or needy. It's about recognizing that your silence, your stillness, your aloofness, even if it comes from a place of confidence, might be misread as a lack of interest or even quiet hostility. And if she feels like she might be rejected before she's even begun, she'll choose to stay silent. She won't take the chance because she doesn't want to feel foolish. She doesn't want to be the one who misread the moment. This is where the idea of the green light comes in. It's something you offer without words. It's in your eyes, in your body language, in the way you turn your attention to someone, not to dominate the moment, but to acknowledge it, to be present in it. A glance that lingers just long enough, a brief smile that signals warmth, the way you position your body, not closed off, but available. These are invitations. These are ways of saying, I see you, I'm not running, I'm here. That's all many women need to feel permission to take that next step. But if all you're doing is existing inside your own head, locked in some fortress of thought or fear or self-protection, then no one's going to break through, and you can't blame them for that, because it's not their job to leap over a wall you build. It's yours to let it down just a little at the right time, to stop waiting for the world to read your mind and start becoming intentional with how you communicate, even before you say a single word. Because if you're not giving the green light, don't be surprised when no one steps forward. In the world we live in now, most people are interacting through a screen before they ever meet in person. It's not just a part of life. It is life for many. Social media, dating apps, the curated digital version of yourself that you put out into the world, it becomes the first impression, and whether you realize it or not, it sends a message, sometimes a message you didn't intend to send. Now, let's think about what that looks like. You've built an online presence that reflects your discipline, your success, maybe even your aesthetics. You post your workouts, your travels, your wins, maybe occasionally something thoughtful or philosophical. You're showing the best version of yourself, and why wouldn't you? You're proud of who you've become. You've worked for it. But here's the trap. When that highlight reel is all they see, it creates a story in their minds. A story where you seem untouchable, out of reach, maybe even uninterested in anything less than perfection. And that right there can stop a woman in her tracks before she even considers reaching out. She sees a man who seems to have it all together, and she starts to wonder if she's good enough. Not in some dramatic way, not always consciously, but subtly, quietly. Why would he bother with me, she thinks. He's probably already talking to someone else. Someone stunning, someone brilliant, someone who fits that world he's presenting. And whether that's true or not doesn't even matter. What matters is perception. If all she's ever seen is the polished version of you, and none of the warmth, the struggle, the human depth underneath, she might admire you, yes, she might crave you, but she won't contact you, because she assumes there's no room for her. No space for her messiness, her insecurity, her realness. And maybe that's because you've only shown one side of yourself, the strong side, the competent side, the polished, high-performing, almost cinematic version of your life. But if that's all anyone ever sees, they won't know that there's a person in there, someone who also feels uncertainty, who also longs for connection, who also sits in silence some nights wondering if any of this means anything. And here's where it gets even more complicated. That image you've built, while honest in its own wake, and act like armor, it keeps out judgment, sure, but it also keeps out connection. If a woman feels like she has to perform or be flawless just to be in your presence, she won't try. She'll retreat, not because she isn't interested, but because she's exhausted before it even begins. And the irony, you might be sitting on the other end of the screen, wondering why no one's reaching out, wondering why you're admired but not approached. So, what do? You find a way to let some humanity shine through. That doesn't mean oversharing. It doesn't mean posting your deepest vulnerabilities to get attention, but it means allowing people to see glimpses of who you are beyond the role you play. Maybe it's the way you speak in a video, less scripted, more sincere. Maybe it's a reflection you share that doesn't come with a solution attached. Maybe it's just the tone you bring when you're present online, not performative, not grandiose, but real. Because people don't crave perfection. They crave resonance, and if you only ever show them your mountaintop, they'll assume there's no room for them to climb with you. So if women crave you but never contact you, maybe it's because they've only seen your mask and not the man behind it. There's something quietly powerful, maybe even a little terrifying, about realizing that the beliefs you carry about yourself don't just live inside your mind, they leak out. They shape how you speak, how you move, how you interpret situations, how you respond to others, and how others respond to you. And when it comes to Ships, especially the subtle, complicated beginnings of attraction. Those beliefs can make or break everything before it even starts. Now think about this. You're walking through life with the quiet conviction that you're not someone women really want. You tell yourself you're not enough, not exciting enough, not successful enough, not desirable enough. Maybe you don't even say it out loud. Maybe you've hidden that thought so deeply that even you don't notice it anymore, but it's there, humming like a low frequency beneath your interactions. So what happens? You enter a room, and instead of standing tall, you shrink just a little, not physically, necessarily, but in presence. Your eyes scan the environment for rejection instead of opportunity. You assume you're being dismissed before anyone's even looked at you. And when a woman does show interest, maybe she smiles at you or gives you a compliment, you downplay it, you question it, you brush it off because deep down you've already decided that it can't be real, that you don't deserve it, and you might think, well, that's just humility, or I'm just being realistic. But it's not humility, it's self-sabotage wrapped in false modesty, and it's not realism either. It's a distorted lens, a lens shaped by whatever you've internalized, maybe from your upbringing, maybe from past relationships, maybe from years of social comparison, and that lens doesn't show you the world as it is. It shows you the world as you fear it is. So when a woman feels drawn to you, and yes, she might, she senses something off, she can't always name it, but she feels it. There's a dissonance. She sees a man who looks strong, maybe even impressive from the outside, but there's something hollow in how he carries himself, something hesitant, like he's trying not to be seen, even as he hopes someone will finally notice him. And here's the tragedy. She might have contacted you. She might have taken the chance. But if your internal belief system has already made the decision for her, if you're not able to receive that signal, to believe it's possible, then you'll miss it. You won't respond with the confidence and clarity that invites her in. You'll fumble it, dismiss it, or not even notice it at all. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you believe you are. And if you believe you're not someone worth reaching out to, you will act in ways, subtly, constantly, that ensure that belief is never challenged. You'll confirm it over and over, not because it's true, but because it's familiar. So the work isn't just about being more attractive or more successful. It's about cleaning out the basement of your mind, dragging those old, corrosive beliefs into the light, confronting them, challenging them, replacing them with something truer, something earned, a belief not born from ego, but from evidence you build by showing up, by being present, by listening when the world tells you something good about yourself. Because until you change the story you're telling yourself, you'll keep living out the same ending. There's a strange paradox in the modern world. Men are more visible than ever, yet more isolated. You can post yourself online, share updates, photos, ideas. You can present your entire life to hundreds, even thousands of people in an instant. But real, personal, meaningful interactions, those are growing scarce. And so, despite all this digital exposure, many men find themselves in a position where they're watched but not approached, desired but not touched, admired but not known. And the painful truth behind all of it is this: they're passive. They wait for things to come to them. They wait for women to notice, to initiate, to make the first move. They rationalize this by saying they don't want to be too forward, or they respect women's autonomy, or they're just not sure if the moment is right. But deep down, what they're really doing is hoping that desire will rescue them from responsibility, that somehow the right woman will show up and see through the noise and pull them into a story worth living. But life doesn't work that way. Attraction doesn't work that way. Relationships, real ones, don't form through hesitation and hope. They form through action, through choice, through risk. The man who waits is the man who is forgotten. Now, that doesn't mean you become aggressive or chase women who aren't interested or demand attention. That's not strength. It's desperation masked as assertiveness. No, what I mean is this. You must be someone who takes initiative, who signals intention, who moves forward with clarity. Not in arrogance, not in neediness, but in grounded, authentic pursuit. You must be willing to be seen not only as strong, but as someone who is engaged, alive to the possibility of connection, willing to act on it without shame. Because what many women are starved for is not another man who worships them, or fawns over them, or hides behind passivity. They're starved for a man who knows what he wants and is not afraid to declare it. Not through words alone, but through presence, direction, consistency. And if you're the kind of man who feels that deep hunger for intimacy, for partnership, for something real, then waiting is your enemy. Waiting is the way that dream dies slowly under the illusion of patience. You have to put yourself in the places where the real conversations happen. You have to practice being seen, not just looked at. That means going first. That means being vulnerable. That means, sometimes, saying something as simple as, "Hey, I noticed you, and I wanted to talk to you." That's terrifying, I know, because it means you could be rejected. But rejection isn't the enemy. Inaction is. And even more than that, you have to stop living like connection is something owed to you. It's not. It's something invited, something built. And it starts with your posture toward life itself. Are you engaged? Are you present? Are you reaching beyond the safety of your routines, beyond the digital self you've curated, into the messy, unpredictable, beautiful space where real people live? Because if you're not, then you're still waiting for someone else to lead your story. And she can feel that. She might even pity it, but she will not chase it. The irony is, when you stop waiting, when you start stepping into the world with intention and courage, that's when people begin to notice. That's when the quiet admiration turns into actual contact. That's when the distance closes, because the man who moves is the man who is met.